This video features the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York. And no, not the current one, the one that existed from 1893 to 1929, as you can see in the picture. An interesting story behind this. Gets into some wealthy family feuds, things like that. Very interesting here. I did read on the write-up that the foundation of this, or the basement of this, goes 40 feet below street level. Interesting here as well, it looks like an elevated platform for the street, which would make sense with what's going on here. So right off the bat we're onto some historical, anomalies, things that are hard to make sense of. So the story behind this hotel was that it was originally two hotels, the Waldorf and the Astoria. This is the original, they say, the Waldorf. Apparently opened its doors in 1893. Eventually will merge. There we have a picture, a drawing of the two hotels. I couldn't really tell if we were talking about a merger of this building into this, or if it was they were side by side. Because there's confusing parts of the narrative mentioning how they had a Peacock Alley that was created to connect the two. You'll see that a little later in the video. So here is the hotel as it stood up until 1929, when it had to be raised to make way for the Empire State Building, as the story goes. And c'est magnifique, I would say. Very unique looking, these. Very unique, don't see those very often, that shape. This is an interesting photo too, because it contradicts the previous one. We have all this in the foreground, and then it looks like it's taken from the same angle, and we're not seeing what we saw there. So a confusing narrative to be sure. Here from another angle, they're calling it, let's see here, I was going to say Gothic, but it's not a Gothic style. We're told this is done in the Renaissance Revival style of architecture. And here we have Astor, John Jacob Astor, famously went down with the Titanic. Supposedly the one who funded the Astoria portion after the merger in 1897. They're saying that that was operational. Very hazy on building timelines that were given with this story. And here we have Waldorf, William Waldorf Astoria, and so much of that time frame in New York seems to be attributed to the Astor name. So an interesting historical narrative there. Here's a street entry. Now I really want you to take in the detail that we're looking at here on this entryway. This part almost looking like a bit of an afterthought, I'm not sure. Maybe part of it, hard to say. Very decorative on the wrought iron, even on this here. And this a covered entryway. Again, very decorative wrought iron work. You got some brickwork up here and down below. And the columns with the lights. I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around for the time frame, and hard to wrap your head around the fact that they would even think about tearing such a thing down. I know the whole everything in the name of progress attitude that came with the 20th century. It seems to me to be more of an excuse these days for the actions that were taken in the destroying of the evidence from this old world. So now we're inside the hotel, and we have some very ornate looking detail. And again, the timeline on the construction of this is not really given. It just tells you when they open their doors. And of course we have no evidence of it being constructed. So just take a look at the detail in these pictures, and I think it speaks for itself. An interesting part of the story of this hotel as well. The original build in 1893, original hotel you saw in the beginning of this video, came to be known as Waldorf's Folly, or Astor's Folly, sorry. Which is an interesting narrative. That narrative has been recycled many times that I've seen, and particularly you can find that in my video on the William A. Clark Mansion in New York, the Inheritors series on my channel. So they're recycling an old narrative with that, how these buildings were just put up in a grandiose fashion and were considered to be a huge mistake by these rich people who didn't care how much money they threw at these things, right? We're looking at the Gentleman's Cafe here. Really take that in. Look at this. Very ornate ceiling. Interesting part of this story as well. We're looking at a timeline of the early 1900s in New York City, and how these hotels just seem to pop up. You have the Hotel Astor, again same owners. The St. Regis, same owners. The Knickerbocker, the Savoy Plaza Hotel. Just a handful of hotels that went up right around the same time, all with this really, again, very over-the-top, intricate detail that you see. This would be the Grand Ballroom. Not very good resolution, but you do still get a sense of the visual here. I like this, before and after. Peacock Alley today. They're calling it. This is, I think they just turned the name into a restaurant in these hotels. But I mean, look, it doesn't compare, even in black and white, it doesn't compare. Oh, look at all these guys ready to have an extravagant meal in a fancy restaurant. Come on, guys, smile for the camera. Don't look so glum. Look what you've inherited. I like this one. This one's got a texture to it. I get a sense again for what's going on here. This is obscene. Not what you'd think of as turn of the century New York. Yeah, the Gilded Era, right? It was just a gaudy era. Had to be done away with. I don't think so. Here we have an old postcard, gives us a bit more idea of the depth of color you might have seen if you were there. Again, the detail level is ridiculous. I like the lights built into the railings as well. Before and after. I didn't mention this earlier, saw this in a previous picture. The chandelier in here. No, it's a bit blurry now, but you get a sense of what's going on there with statues, and imagine the weight of that thing. Here's the Peacock Alley, as they say. I suspect we're going underground here. I don't know exactly the situation here. Very hazy again in my research. It's hard to get a clear answer on anything. Peacock Alley again. This apparently Peacock Alley, but it doesn't look the same as some of the other pictures, because this is as well. We've got a very marble encased hallway going on here. Studio gallery. Yeah. Back then and now. Feel like you're in France, don't you? Wow. A circular railing. I wish there was more pictures of this. This is a feat, a serious feat of finishing work. And wrought iron. Have a look at the stairs here, curving their way up above. Spectacular. I love it. Billiard room. Okay, that's a ceiling, isn't it? I'd love to play a little billiards in that room. Very curvy looking room here. Marie Antoinette room, of course, let them eat cake. So I hope you're getting a sense of what we're looking at here. Oh, not so pretty here. There's a wine cellar down in the bowels of the building. Lobby. Rooftop. Now that would be a place to have some tea, wouldn't it? And this begins the demolition process. Imagine no work cut out for these guys here, having to take this place apart. 29, sorry. So it wasn't just the stock market that fell that year. Now this one I pulled from the Astor house or mansion. Supposedly the hotel was built in the same property, so this would be an old photograph. I might have that wrong, but it's so hazy, all the details from that era. It's possible. I wanted to showcase this because, well, do I need to say because? Have a look. I mean, I know there's paintings all over the wall, but I'm looking at all this. I'm looking at what's part of the building, and I just can't believe you would tear such a thing down. So that's a little look at the Waldorf Astoria, not the current one, but the one that lasted less than 40 years. Again, I don't know. I don't know anything for sure, and I don't claim to. But to me, this doesn't add up. The story doesn't add up. I think there's much more to it, and it feels like they're trying to get rid of evidence of the past, evidence that we should really know more about, a past we should really know more about. I hope you enjoyed this little look at the Waldorf Astoria, and I thank you for joining me.